بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم المصطفى محمد وآل الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We said that there are two major issues. One is what Ayatollah Mutahari calls tab'iz, discrimination. The other is shurur, the difficulties, problems, evil in the world. With respect to tab'iz, discrimination, the question is, if everything is created by God, we don't have different creators, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created them with differences? Okay? Of course, the question is about differences, what he wants the person or those people who make this question, instead they want to prove discrimination. So you have to be careful. There's a big difference between difference and discrimination. But what they really are talking about is difference, but they want to say there is discrimination. They say God is the sole, the only creator. Why there are so many differences? We have human beings, we have animals, we have plants, we have angels. Even inside, for example, human beings, we have men, women, we have people with, for example, differences in their intelligence, or for example, some people are more beautiful than others, some people are stronger than others. Why there are so many differences? Some people are poor, some people are rich, some people are healthy, some are ill. So there are so many differences. Why? Although God is one. Ayatollah Mutahari says there are two ways to answer this question. We have already referred to one general answer. We call it ijmali. Pasukh ijmali means a general answer. Means we don't go into every particular case. We give you a holistic answer. And then we would have jawab tafsili, a detailed answer and explanation. When it comes to ijmali, he says many people, many religious people, especially those who are not equipped with philosophy and theology, they would use a general approach. They say, we know that God is alim, knowledgeable, hakim, wise, ghani, rich, kamil, perfect, adil, just, jawad, generous. So when you know that God is knowledgeable, perfect, generous, just, wise, and you don't understand what is the wisdom, what is the reason behind this creation or that creation, you would not lose your faith in God because you didn't understand the point behind this creation. If you have managed to prove existence of God, and you have managed to prove that God has these qualities, and in some cases you don't understand, okay, you say to yourself, this is because of limit of your knowledge. If a person is the most educated, the most experienced, the most successful, for example, architect, and everyone knows this. Then in his design, there are issues that you don't understand. Would you say he has made mistake? Or you would say, I don't understand because I am not as experienced, as educated, as, wise as him. So a general approach to problems that we may see in the world is that because we have already rationally proved existence of God, and we have proved his attributes of knowledge and wisdom and justice, so if we don't understand why there are such differences, we say, okay, we don't understand. But this would not stop our faith in God. In other words, no one is proving for us that God is not just, or God is not wise, or God is not knowledgeable. They are just raising question after already establishing faith in him would not stop us. It's like a doctor. You go to a doctor, he gives you prescription, you come out, someone says, why he has given you this prescription? This medicine is bitter. So you say, oh, I should, not go to this doctor anymore. Or you say, it might be bitter, but there must be a reason. Because he's educated, he has certificate, I have trust in him. I don't need to understand why he has given me bitter medicine, why he has not given me sweet medicine. Is it clear? Mm-hmm. So, Ayatollah Mutahari says, this general answer is good. But we should not be satisfied with this in the sense that we say, okay, I don't want to understand more. That is enough for me. He says, you have to, at least you, religious people, especially people who are interested in Islamic studies, you should go beyond. You should try to understand better. Go and study, for example, some medicine, so that you understand why he has given this prescription. We have to go further. So without questioning this answer, we say it's better not just to stop here and try to understand exactly as much as we can understand. We cannot exactly as Allah understand, but as much as we can understand, we should try to improve our understanding. Especially because many people, this is a very important point. Many people, they have become believers in God not through independent intellectual arguments. They have looked at the world and they have seen signs of wisdom, of knowledge, of design. They believe in God. If someone questions design of the world, or order in the world, or knowledge of the Creator, then their iman becomes weak. Because through world they found God. So now if someone can, it's like, he makes this example. He says, this material world for some people is like a mirror in which they have seen God. If people raise questions about this world, it means like they are putting some, dirty, for example, spots on the mirror. They cannot see clearly. Someone who has come to know God through design and order in the world, then if they tell him that there is no design, there is no order, or everything is, for example, because of evolution or whatever, he may lose his iman. Yes, if someone is following philosophical approach to religion, theological approach based on the reason, then he would not start doubting. So, this is another reason why we should not be satisfied with that general answer. General answer is good, but first, you should try to improve your understanding. Secondly, you can help people whose understanding of God and faces God comes from physical, empirical data. And to see counter examples can make them lose their faith or start doubting. So it's good to go further. Then he says, there is a very fundamental question here. And inshallah, if you understand this session, it would help you a lot. Some people have said, we have an issue with this general answer in a very fundamental way. You say there is maslahah, there is a kind of interest in the way that God has created the world and runs the world. And God's wisdom requires him to observe maslahah. I don't know maslahah perfectly, but I know there is maslahah. Why God has, for example, put eyebrow on our face? Why we have, for example, 2 eyes, 2 ears? I may understand, I may not understand, but I know there is maslahah because he is knowledgeable, he is powerful, he is wise. There is maslahah. Why, for example, there is illness and health? It's maslahah. Why some people have children, some people have no children? There is a maslahah, there is a system in this world. Keeping that system is to the interest of this world, and God is wise and observes maslahah. We may not know exactly what is the maslahah for each particular point, but we know that in general, God has considered maslahah. Okay. The question is this. Some people say, it seems you are comparing God to human beings who have limited power, limited capability, and they have to follow procedures. For example, you say, God has found to our maslahah, to our interest, to give us free will. The result of free will is that if mother during, for example, pregnancy is not careful and takes some bad food or some medicine or drinks, take some drugs, may affect the child. And to give free will to people is maslahah. If God says no, those mothers who are pregnant and they want to do something wrong, I would take away their freedom. Maslahah would not work. Or if we say, this medicine has this result, this effect, but God stops the causal relation between medicine and the effect when a pregnant mother takes this medicine. This doesn't work. So, these people say, no, you are underestimating the power of God. God could have created the whole world and at the same time could have stopped harms coming, could have stopped bad action of mother having impact on the child. Or for example, a murderer killing someone, God could have stopped this. Or for example, there is a fire and burns someone's house and this person has no money to make another house. God could have created the world differently. So why you are saying God had to observe maslahah? Maslaha is for us, not for God. God is above everything.
Yes.
He can decide everything in the way he wants. He doesn't need to follow any rules or any regulations. So this is a major question. Add to this question a discussion we had in Kalam, whether God's actions are for purpose or not. Remember? هل الأفعال معللة بالأغراض? You remember some people said, we cannot say God's actions serve purpose. Why? Because they thought it means then God is needy. We do something because we want to benefit from it. But God would not want to benefit from anything. Therefore, he has no purpose. If you remember, we clarified this issue over there and we said God has purpose. He doesn't do things in vain, but his purpose is to benefit others, not to benefit from. You remember?
Yeah.
We said he has purpose because he's wise, but to benefit others. So, this is also very much connected to this discussion. So, God's actions have purpose, and he observes interest. He observes the causal relation, and this would not contradict his high position. So, Ayatollah Mutahhari, to explain this, starts a very important discussion here. And Alhamdulillah, because you have studied some philosophy, so now you can understand better, because this part is very philosophical. The question is this: is this system in the world essential or accidental? This is a very important question. We have a system in the world based on cause and effect. You take this medicine, this is the result. You derive carefully or carelessly, this is the result. You plant and take care of your farm, you would have this result. Otherwise, you would have another result. You study, you have this result. Okay? The question is, does God create these beings first and then adds a system, adds relations to them so that we could have thought having the same thing but different system? Or the system of the world is essential part of the world? Can we have fire and wood, but fire doesn't burn wood? God could have created fire and wood, but stop fire burning wood. Or, for example, stop fire burning wood when it's going to create a problem for someone. This is a very important question. Some people have thought God creates things separately, then God brings relations and system, and he can do things differently by making laws different, by making relations different, by making system different, and at the same time keeping all the things that we have. Ayatollah Mutahhari says, no, this is mistake. Before we explain the creation, let's refer to numbers. This is a very good example. How numbers are to be conceived. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Please listen very carefully. Is 5 something and its order something else? Is 5 something and to be after 4 and before 6 something accidental? Can you say to God, oh God, you, no problem, create 5, but not before 6 or after 4? Put it somewhere else. Because if 5 is between 4 and 6, creates problem for me. You laugh. Because you know that this is part of the mahiyya, part of the very notion of 5, that it has to be between 4 and 6. So, now let's go to this world. Everything which is created in this world is like 5, like 6. It's not that they are created and then they are put in a position, and that position can change. It's not that, for example, you can make the place of cause and effect different. You can reverse. You say, we want to burn fire with wood. God can make it. We have fire, we have wood. Now, fire burns wood. Fire burns, sometimes also food. So, fire burns wood. Now we want to make wood burn fire. Or none of them does anything to the other. It's up to God to choose. We say this is like saying we have 5, but not after 4 or before 6. Then he makes this philosophical claim. Anything which is created with its own existence, its relations come, its characteristics come, its properties come. God does not create things twice. First creates them and then puts them somewhere. For example, he says about, just to make it simple, he says, for example, Sa'di, an Iranian poet. He says, Sa'di is a person who came at certain time and lived in a certain city. For example, he was in the city of Shiraz at a certain time. If you say God could have made Sa'di in another time, another place, and still be Sa'di, he says that's not then Sa'di. That's something else. Because Sa'di that we know is partly related to time, partly related to that city. Or for example, Sa'di that we know, his father is so and so, his mother is so and so. You cannot think of Sa'di. Sometimes people say, for example, if I had not married this person, then what would be my son? You cannot think like this. How would be my son, for example, if I had married someone else, or my daughter, You have married this person, and you are only now to think about this, because this is the way you are going to have your child. If you had married another person, then you would be a different person. Philosophically, don't say, I can be marrying any person. Your way of life forms and shapes you. You are not exactly the same person. Even every day you are a different person. Yeah? Every day, after every even meeting, you are a different person. Now that you go home, you are not the same person who came today. Yeah? You are a different person. Otherwise, we are wasting our time. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates every being, and with the same act of creating them, he gives them their properties, their characteristics, their effects, their relations. Like by the same creation of numbers, their order is decided. It's not like arbitrary positions. For example, he mentions as an arbitrary position. For example, we can have a society, we can be equal, but we say, okay, let's choose one of us as our leader, for example. Or someone forces himself or another person to be our leader. Maybe the person is the same person. Nothing has changed. Or we are, for example, people who work in the same office. A letter comes and says, one of you is now manager of this office. The person is not necessarily changed. But the relation, causal relation in the world is not like this. It's not that, just a letter said, fire can burn, water can do this. If you eat, for example, this medicine, these are not decided by commands or letters, or a law passed in the parliament. These are existential relations that are essential for these beings. So, if God has created this effect, then the cause above it and this effect and the relation between them are created at the same time. And then the cause for that cause and the cause for that cause. And finally, it leads to this idea that God has not created separately these beings. God has created a system. And God has created only once. This ayah that sometimes we have been mentioning, وَمَا أَمْرُنَا إِلَّا وَاحِدًا. He also mentions this ayah several times. وَمَا أَمْرُنَا إِلَّا وَاحِدًا. Our affair is not except one. How many things Allah created? He created only one thing. How many times? Only once. Allah is one and He has created only once. But that one thing that Allah created can be analyzed into billions and billions of things. They can expand over time and space. Till end of our life, we cannot even claim that we understood one creature perfectly. If you study all your life, even one creature, you cannot say, I know everything about it. Okay? But it's not that Allah created them one by one and then put them together. No, it's not like a person who brings materials and then says, okay, now we put, for example, the bricks here, then we put, for example, window here, we put a ceiling here. This is not the way Allah creates. The way He creates is holistic, is unified, and relations in this system are part of the system and are essential to the parts. Everything is together. Yes, a question?
Can you clarify this, He created once?
Yeah.
Because in Quran He's saying that He's created in several occasions.
So that is our analysis then. When you look at Allah's perspective, everything is together. Okay? But when you go inside the system, you can analyze it.
Isn't it Allah's word that says that He created in one day we created this?
No problem. It's a matter of different perspective. You can say He created everything at once, You can say he created this physical world in stages, no problem. All the stages are also part of that one. You know? Yes.
He created once and he created one thing. What is that one thing that he created?
Everything other than God.
Yeah, what?
Everything other than God is only one.
The same as Wahdatul Wujud.
Yes. Because from one, only one can come. Al-Wahidu la yasturu anhu illa al-Wahid. So, it doesn't make sense to say why God, for example, doesn't stop this fire, for example, burning my house, or this flood, for example, I don't know, destroying our town. If you want to stop all these things, means you have to stop the whole system. You have to have nothing. The story of that person that wanted to have tattoo of lion, you remember?
Yeah.
So when he went, he said, you know, I want a complete lion. So when that person put the needle and started, it was painful. I don't know how they do it today, it's that there is pain or not, but at that time they put needle with some chemicals so that it goes inside. So it was painful. He said, what part of lion is this? He said, it's tail. It's not important. It doesn't need tail. Then he started again, said, what part of it? He said, leg. Even without leg is okay, you know, doesn't need to run. Then said, you know, it's what part is the back? Doesn't need, just head is enough. Then he said, it's now the head. Said, doesn't need head. Then that person got angry and said, Shire biyalo domo eshkam khoda ham nafarid. Even God has not created a lion without tail and a stomach and head. Means it's not lion. Yeah? So, it's a philosophical point. Either you have lion or you don't have lion. Don't, you know, make me confused. If you want lion, this is the definition of lion. If you want this world, then fire has this capacity and this property and I don't know, this order, water, wood, all these things. You cannot, you know, mix them and change them. It's like 5 between 4 and 6. Everything is part of one unified creation. Yes.
If creation is just once, and each creation comes with its own relational existence, its social existence with respect to its surroundings, then that one creation is kind of like the trigger point at which the rest of creation then just follows in the sense of...
No, when we say one, there is no rest. When you say rest of creation, it
No,
means...
sorry, what I meant was the causal relationships.
Yeah.
The causal relationships, the cause and effect continues.
When you say continues, you are looking inside the system.
Because the question here would arise then at what, you know, someone could ask that, okay, there was that one creation and the rest of it is those causal relationships that each thing brings with it, as you said, then that means that it's just a cause and effect relationship that is going on around us, and there is, God was just at that initial point of creating everything.
You know, imagine, I think maybe we had this in, I don't know which lesson was, Kalam of philosophy. Imagine 100-floor building. Imagine, okay? This 100-floor building, you created it at once. But the first floor is under the second floor. The second floor is under the third floor. And someone who wants to go from the first to the second has to go from the first to the second. Cannot say, bring second level floor also next to the first floor. Then it would not be the second floor. You cannot say, you could have created differently. I said, no matter how I have created it, second floor is above first floor. Third floor is above second floor. So, you created it at once, but inside there is relation, there is order. Each floor comes before or after. And also now you can expand this in time. Imagine a 100-floor building that lasts for 100 years. Did you imagine it? Okay. So is the first year different from second year or not? Yes. So at once you made a 100-floor building which lasts for 100 years. It took you no time, but it can take people, 100 years to think about this if they want to analyze it. Imagine if there's a person who wants to think about every second of these 100 years, then it takes him 100 years. And if a person says, I want to think 2 seconds for every second of this 100 years, it take him 200 years. Yeah?
We can't say that.
So this is why, for something that God created at once, we may spend millions of years to discover, and still we cannot understand everything.
So we can even see that if we create something, for example, a builder, he would first make the drawing. That actually is a creation itself.
This is the difference between us and God. We cannot create things in reality at once.
No, but I mean the drawing itself might be like a creation
Yes.
at once, but no, of course.
God doesn't need drawing.
No, of course.
This is ibda'. Yes.
Just is this system only within the system? Is only within matter? Is this beyond the other
No.
realms?
Part of it is physical, material world. Part of it is the world of the spirits. Alam arwah, mujarradat. Everything other than God, ma siwa Allah,
Has this system
is all created together at once. Then Ayatollah Mutahari mentions a good memory, and an interesting and nice memory about himself and one of his teachers. And you know that teacher. I will explain. He says, I remember when I was studying in Qom. Ayatollah Mutahari, because of some reasons, had to move from Qom to Tehran. And he had to live in Tehran. And then he started teaching in University of Tehran. He also was giving lectures in Tehran, but also he used to go sometime, to Qom, have weekly classes in Qom. But he says, when I was in Qom, one day I was thinking about the way I have lived my life. I have become a talabe, I have come to Jose, and I was thinking, what would have been my situation if I had gone to another way of life? For example, if I had gone to become engineer or doctor, do something else. And he says, of course, for me, Islamic sciences and Islamic teachings were the most important things. But I was thinking that still I could be a good mu'min if I was not a Talabi. Because I knew that there are many good people, many pious people in other walks of life. Yeah, there are many good doctors, many good engineers, very pious, very close to God. So he says, I was thinking about these issues, and I was thinking that perhaps if I had studied sciences, I would have even be able to find some ground to have better understanding of God through his creation. But then he says, in those days, I had just come to know a teacher that when he was teaching philosophy, he was not just repeating, some concepts and some terms. When he was teaching philosophy, he was making you able to understand and to grasp and to feel. And that is Imam Khomeini. He's talking about Imam Khomeini, who was teaching also philosophy. He doesn't mention the name because I think it's at the time of Shah. So he says, when he was teaching philosophy, my questions, because Ayatollah Mutahari was very much concerned about understanding philosophical issues. In one of his books, Elal Gerayish bil Maddi Gerayi, the reasons for some people becoming materialist. In the introduction, he talks about his life, and he says how important for him was to find answer. He says, I had read some books by Marxists so many times that I had memorized some paragraphs. And he says, even in my small hujra, room in the seminary, I had put partition between me and my roommate so that he would not disturb me and I only study. For him was very important to find answer for his questions. He says, when this teacher started explaining philosophy to me, when he started explaining Qa'idah al-Wahid, what does it mean? Al-Wahidu la yasturu anhu illa al-Wahid. From one, only one thing can be coming. Or for example, La mu'athira fil wujud illa Allah. There is no one who has influence in the world except Allah. The only doer, the only agent is Allah. Next to him there is nothing. But at the same time, he was explaining the hierarchy of the agents. He was explaining Al-fi'lu fi'lullah wa huwa fi'luna. Our action is our action, but it is an action of God. What does it mean? Or amrun bayna amrayn, la jabra wa la tafwid, bal amrun bayna amrayn. So basically what he wants to say, he says, when I remembered how much I have benefited from the lectures on philosophy by this teacher, and how all my questions disappeared, and now I have the pleasure of understanding the world, then I said to myself, it was my best decision that I came to Jose and I dedicated my life to Jose studies. And then he says, Al-an ham barhamon aqida. And now after many years, after decades, I have the same idea. So this was interesting memory because related to this issue of ma amruna illa wahida, but at the same time shows that these issues are so important in shaping your understanding of yourself and the world that can make your life meaningful. No? You can say, this is one of the achievements of my life that I have understood this issue. For some people, this is not important. Say, these talaba, they waste their time, Every day they go to Hawza, they learn, this concept and terms, No one is going to give them, some people say, no one is going to give you a loaf of bread for this. We need to pay, bills and, rent and electricity, this. Why you are studying? And some people say, no, we also get then employed and we will be also paid. But that is not the good answer. Yes, of course, we have to pay our bills. But the best answer is not that other people make money from that, we make money from this. The answer is that I want this for my own satisfaction. I want this for my own growth. Inshallah, Allah helps me to find solution for my financial needs. But you cannot compare what I do with what people do for sake of earning. We don't want to underestimate anything, As Ayatollah Mutahari says, there are many pious people who do other things. We don't want to underestimate anything, but we want to say, don't look at this from a materialistic or from economics perspective and say, what is the value of your study? How much money you are making? We are not concerned about money. We want to understand ourselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala better. We want to improve ourselves. That's the main thing.
Yeah, did he mean Imam Khomeini or was it Allama Tabatabai from whom he learned?
He learned from Allama Tabatabai as well, but he means here Imam Khomeini. Yes.
Because I remember one of his sayings that he says that we were sort of dying spiritually in the Hausa till the time Allama Tabatabai came. So I was just thinking maybe this.
He benefited a lot from Allama Tabatabai, but this particular, I had it in my mind from even before, and I think also the reason he doesn't, if it was Allama Tabatabai, he should have mentioned it. It's about Imam Khomeini, because Imam Khomeini used to teach philosophy, and you know the story. Imam Khomeini says that, for example, in Fayziya, when his son drank water from a jar of water, some people, what they said, Then, even in Najaf, when I was in Qom, one of our friends had found a recording of Imam Khomeini's lecture on philosophy in Najaf. Still he was teaching. But he became then more known for his fiqh, but he was a teacher of philosophy. So, he says, in the beginning, we wanted to discuss in a very easy and simple way about Adl Ilahi, divine justice, but the discussion now has taken us to philosophy. And he says, now I would try to keep this simple, not to make it too philosophical. So, the general answer is now, clear that there are some interests, some benefits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala observes in His creation. And we may not know all the details. We may not know what is the benefit of this particular thing. But in a general way that we know He has knowledge, He has power, He has goodwill, He's benevolent, and He is wise. He observes those things. If I don't understand, this is the limit of my knowledge. And if you say He could have created but changed the relations, then we say this is impossible. This system is created together, and the relation between cause and effect is part of the existence of cause and effect. You cannot have fire and wood, but stop fire burning the wood. Then he moves on to the question of difference and discrimination. In Farsi we call tafawut for difference, and tab'iz is discrimination. We have tafawut but no discrimination. There's difference but no discrimination. He says maybe one way of explaining the difference is tafawut is in those that receive. Tab'iz is coming from top. Tafawut is not coming from top. For example, he says, if two people bring the same container, for example, each container has capacity for 10 liters of water. If you give 5 liters to one and 10 liters to the other, this is tab'iz. But if one container has 5 liter capacity, the other one has 10 liter capacity, and you give the one with 5, the one with 10, this is not discrimination. Discrimination was when both had same capacity, you give one 5, the other 10. Okay? So discrimination comes from the top, from the giver. Tafawut is the receiver. One receiver from another receiver, one recipient from another recipient, they have differences. Okay? Another example. If two students have made the same progress, have made the same efforts, have given the same answers to the questions, you give one of them A, you give the other one B. This is tab'iz. Yeah? Because they show the same progress, the same performance. Why you give one A, the other one B? This tab'iz. But if one student has answered all the questions, the other one has answered most of the questions. You give one A, the other one B. This is not tab'iz. It's not discrimination. It's a difference. So, tab'iz. Who is responsible for tab'iz? The one who is on the top. The giver of the water, or the giver of mark. Who is responsible for tafawut? The recipient. Yes.
What is that second one?
Tafawut is difference.
Tafawut.
Yeah.
In terms of the recipient here, which is the capacity of the recipient to receive,
Yeah.
that is in Allah's hand.
Yeah. So then he himself raises this question, that maybe you say, okay, in the case of Allah, the differences are also coming from Him. It's different from teacher. Teacher is not responsible for the differences between students. Yeah? Or for example, the one who is giving water is not responsible for differences of capacities of the containers. But in our case, who created us? He could have given us more capacity, for example. He could have put us in different position. Yeah? For example, someone is more intelligent than me. Allah could have created us, the same people, but I am now more intelligent than him. The answer is clear. What's the answer?
The receiver.
The answer is وَمَا أَمْرُنَا إِلَّا وَاحِدًا. You are taking something out of the system and they say, what is wrong if I put it another place? There is only one problem with this, that the whole system has to change. It's like a person says, I only want you I have one request. Just please make 5 after 6, for example. Just simple question. Oh Allah, I don't have any hajat. Just make this 5 after 6. Just this simple question means the whole world collapses. Okay? Yes.
So what about du'as then? Because du'as are like,
Dua is part of systems.
right.
Wow, wow, wow.
Because then,
Dua is part of system. Like for example, you can say, I want to study harder. Okay. You can study harder. That's not a problem. It's part of the system. You can make dua for success. This is part of system. But you say, oh Allah, please change my father with that person. I want that person to be my father.
but you wouldn't logically even
This
say
then doesn't make sense. Oh Allah, why you didn't create me 100 years before? Then this is not you. Why you didn't create me, for example, 100 years later? Then this is not you. Why this person who came, for example, this driver who was careless and made me, now disabled? Why you didn't stop him? The way things work is based on a system. No problem. You are more than welcome to work within the system. Okay? Learn how the system works and bring your own factors. Work within the system. But you cannot change the system. So, your requests, if they are compatible with the system, okay. But if your requests are against the system, or as we say, against the wisdom of God, then there is no place. Okay? Yes.
What about other more extreme examples? For example, babies born with disabilities or very rare or strange diseases that make you appear ugly in public. Very, very ugly that some people don't go out of their homes. How do you explain that to those who are suffering?
So the way this has been happening, it's because of this system and overall result of the factors that worked.